right, guys, I guess we're going here. So, guys, this is it's another walk in the park with my black German Shepherd, working breed. I want to talk about something real quick. I think I want to talk about two things. I think I want to talk about slavery. I always have to talk about that, slavery, and the Doge. And I have to remember this right here. So I want to talk about slavery and the Doge auditing the U.S. Department of Education, and what my thoughts are on that, guys. So let's start. Let's tackle slavery, because a lot of brothers, man. I mean, a lot of brothers, especially in any business that we're in. Any business, doesn't matter what business. I just so happen to be in the construction business, but I think all businesses are pretty much the same. The overall goal is to produce a profit. So you have to master whatever it is that you're good at. And then once you master that, you figure out a way to get that product or that service, whichever one you have, to someone else, and so that they can benefit from it. So what you're actually doing is you're adding value, or you're creating value for somebody else, because you're able to produce a product or service for them in which they can gain value from your product or service. So businesses are all the same, guys. But, you know, the question is, you know, you look at which came first, slavery or racism. And I've always asked myself that question: what came first, slavery or racism? And once you deal with that question, you would see that you can see what's going on, guys. But let me say this right here: slavery, and this is me talking, was a matter of vulnerability. The people who were vulnerable were the ones who got enslaved. And when I say vulnerable, what I mean by that is where your mental capacity was. I know you got to use the bathroom at some point in time. Wherever your mental capacity was. Now, you guys got to go back. That's why history, man, is really good, man. You know, I used to like to, you know, read books. I used to think that, guys, at one time, man, when you look at things like Roots, you would think that, some of you guys don't know what Roots is. Roots was a slave movie that came out with Alex Haley. He wrote a book about his ancestry and how we came over here and got here from Africa. But you would think that white men went to the continent of Africa on ships and just started grabbing black people and enslaving them. That's not how it worked, guys. Matter of fact, most of the white ships, when they came over, you know, the Africans weren't even on the coast for the most part. They were deep into the country. So, you know, they couldn't even navigate back there to go get them. And not only that, if they navigated back there to get them, it was too many of them. Yeah, jokers like Shaka Zulu and all them guys, man, them guys weren't playing. You know, they were just sheer numbers was enough to get them. I don't care what kind of weapons they had. But, so the bulk share of the slaves, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but the bulk share of the slaves, guys, it was a result of African chiefs and tribes. They were warring amongst one another. They were fighting amongst one another, taking each other's stuff. They weren't at peace with one another. And what was happening is one tribe would take over the other tribe, and all the ones who were strong, like if one tribe took over the other tribe, where the spoils of war went to the conquering tribe. The tribe that conquered, they got the spoils of war. And the spoils of war, they sold the weaker, they sold a lot of the weaker people, and not necessarily weak in strength, but mentally weak, the ones that was afraid. Now the ones that weren't afraid to die and that would fight to death like the Indians here, those guys, those tribes killed them. They went on ahead and did away with them. But the ones who were vulnerable, the ones who were weak mentally, they might have been strong physically, but they were afraid to die. And we all met people like that, big dude, man, he wouldn't hurt a fly. Well, those were the ones that got turned into slaves. Okay, so that's why I say that slavery was a matter of vulnerability. Come on. So what would happen? Get here. Come on. So what would happen is, when they came here, black people, when they came here, number one, we didn't know the land. We couldn't navigate through the land like the Indians could, See, the Indians, they just run away. You can capture them and make them as slaves, they'll find a way, they'll get away. They knew the land. And not only that, a lot of the Indians, that's why you say the brave, and those guys would, they didn't put up with that, man. They'd rather die than to be captives. And so, guys, so the black people, it was a matter of vulnerability, man. We were vulnerable. The ones who they turned into slaves, they were mentally at the point they were afraid, fear. That's why they were made out of slaves. So, people talking about racism and all that kind of stuff, man. No, man, those guys were afraid, man. They were vulnerable. Because, they were vulnerable, and you can't you can't hold somebody in bondage who's not afraid to die. Because either I be free or I'm gonna die trying to be free. That's just like now, man. If somebody, one of my biggest fears is that somebody mistakenly, I have a mistaken identity or something like that, and somebody put me in jail and I didn't do the crime. And somebody mistakenly said, well, you did it, and it make it seem like I did it. And so you put me in jail. Man, I would fight until my very last breath, man. You just had to go ahead and kill me, because every day I'm gonna try to get out. Come on, every day. Every day. I just couldn't be that person. So I think that's what it was, guys. We sit here and talk about, the slaves and they did them wrong and all. And then this is another thing we got to stop doing, guys. We have got to stop talking. Come on, this way. We gotta let that go. Let it go. It's not gonna help us out. It's not gonna help us out. It's history. The white people, there's a lot of people don't know that a lot of white people back then didn't have slaves. It was only the top probably 2% that had slaves. And then another thing that a lot of people don't understand, there were black people who had slaves. And that's what we don't like to deal with. Come on. Yeah, we don't like to deal with that one. Yeah, we don't like to deal with that one because it's hard. That one's hard to explain. Those black people. And some of the black slave owners were the most brutal. Anthony Johnson, as a matter of fact, man, he had it where he set it up. It used to be you only had indentured service people. You only kept them for about 7 years. 7 years was the time limit, and you let them free. Well, Anthony Johnson took a court case. You guys need to look this up. Anthony Johnson in North Carolina, I think that's where he was. But he set it up to where you can keep a slave for life, and took it to court and won. So these are the things that we got to deal with, man. We don't like to deal with stuff like that, man. We kind of overlook those things. We pick and choose what we want to deal with. Kind of like, when I remember I used to engage with my mom when it came down to the Bible. I used to read the Bible and stuff. Guys, I used to be an avid reader at one point in time, but if I used to talk to my mom about the Bible, man, she would pick out pieces and clauses to benefit her. And we just can't do that, guys. That's just not how it works. But that's, slavery was a matter of vulnerable. We were vulnerable. We were afraid to die. We didn't have anything that we could stand on. So things are, that's just kind of where it's at, man. Let's get into this Doge thing, man, that they're talking about. The U.S. Department of Education. These guys, I'll be honest with you, I worked as a teacher. I probably put about high school. I did a little middle school as substitute. But high school, guys, I might have done about, 12 years teaching, maybe. I never was there long enough to, I never worried about getting tenure because I knew I was a good teacher. I was good at what I did, man, and, I never ever worried. I always could find a teaching job, especially I taught mathematics. And I was really good at teaching mathematics, man. I taught my math team. I just picked out some students, man, and took them out there. Come on. I took them out there, and them guys were just beating up on everybody. And I think my math team, they started out as freshmen. Even when I left, they continued to win the math competitions all the way up until they were in the 12th grade. Because I taught my students the theory of mathematics. So I was a damn good teacher, man. I think oh, that's a squirrel. I was teacher of the year. Get it, boy. I was teacher of the year my very first year teaching. I took my military experience and kind of forced my students to be very disciplined. I think that I started out with discipline, man. You care nothing about all that other stuff. Those kids need discipline first. Now, the U.S. Department of Education, man, and guys, I'm telling you, man, the biggest hurdle I had as a teacher is that the documentation, all the junk that we had to do, man, that we didn't have time to do. We just never had time. We just never had time. You couldn't finish. You couldn't finish all this documentation and stuff that they had us doing. You couldn't finish it. You couldn't focus on, you couldn't focus on teaching because you had all that crap to do. And it's the same thing in the junior college too, man. I mean, man, it just depends on who you're dealing with. It depends on what administration you're dealing with. It's just stuff, it's just stuff on top of stuff, man. You can never get anything done, I promise you guys. If you are a teacher, it's just too much paperwork. Now, you gotta understand, and here's another thing, guys. If you're teaching, stop. If you're teaching, split-second flexibility is all but gone. They don't allow you to have split second. If you're teaching a particular subject, so I'm teaching a particular skill, and my students don't get it, well, if they have a set way they want you to teach that, they make it almost impossible for you to pivot and try to come up with something new. They have these programs and you need to do it this way. It's bad. Or if you want to do something, I'm actually building a house right now down the street from a high school. And the construction teacher that's at that high school. I know him very well. I called him and said, hey man, I'm building a house down the street from the school. Why don't you, do a field trip? Come down here and let me show the students and let me walk the students through the house and let them, kind of learn about this stuff. Come on. You know what his response was? It's too much paperwork. Come back. Too much paperwork. Man, hey man, and this is what it said, man, they clapped down on us, man. They done locked down on us, man. You gotta do this, that, this. It's just not even worth my time. So now, you got a group of students that can't go and take advantage of opportunities like this because of the doggone paperwork. And this is because the U.S. Department of Education, they have this money, they fund it to the states. And when they fund this money to the states, there are certain documentations and certain things they expect from the states in order to get that money, right? Then when the states channel that money down to the school system, there are certain documentations and procedures and stuff like that in order for them to get the money. Then when the school systems get it, they send it down to the local schools or the different schools in different communities. There are certain documentations and things like that they got to get because all that stuff is packed on top of each other. So at the end of the day, it's that teacher that has to produce all the documentation from the state, from the U.S. Department of Education to the state, to the local school system, all the way down to that school. Is that teachers are gonna have to produce and do all that paperwork and documentation, in most cases. So come back. So the teachers are so bogged down with paperwork, they can't even teach. Come here. Yeah, they can't even teach. They can't do nothing. When his ears twitched up like that, something spooked him. So I don't want him to just get too spooked. This is what happened. So what you gotta do, guys, what we gotta do is we gotta get those, now the Doge, and this is where the Doge come in at, they're trying to chop them guys off. Trump is trying to get it to where the state is the ones that, just here you go, state, y'all do what you gotta do and figure this thing out. Or y'all take y'all tax dollars and y'all figure this thing out. And force the state to be accountable for the education. You're gonna have some states that's gonna do really good and some that's not gonna do too good. Well then now we can see what the problem is. You can point your fingers and say, well, these people on this state, they're not doing something right. So we need to go dig into them or that state. So say for instance, if it's Alabama, which is probably gonna be Alabama, in most cases it's gonna be at the bottom. But then at that point, Alabama could look at, I don't know, another school, another state and say, hey, look, these are the things that's successful in your state. Why don't we try some of these same methods? Because, since the U.S. Department of Education been around, the kids have actually been getting worse. So, and that is a matter of national defense. Our kids are getting dumber, and other countries are getting smarter. They're getting much smarter than we are. Well, that's the problem, guys. That's the problem. I mean, it's crazy now, man. But that's just a quick one, guys. I just want to kind of talk about that. You guys have a good one.